So it looks like I got an early Christmas present. I get to sit here and talk about my new best favorite book, which of course probably changed the election forever, Adios America by Ann Coulter. And this is an opportunity for you to meet Ann Coulter, to get the book. She's going to be doing live signings while we sit here. I'll even be taking questions in a little while right off of your computer. You can email me a question. How do they do that? Livestream.com. And I'm telling you, this is going to be a great opportunity. First and foremost, if you don't know what this book has already done, it got read by the one person Ann pointed out that needed to read it, and that was Donald Trump. So congratulations for shifting the entire election, Ann.
Yes, now I can die. My work is done.
No, because people want to know what the next book is going to be. This country is in need of an enema, and Donald Trump needed he needed the weapon.
Yeah, and God bless him. I mean, for many reasons. I had laid out the case before I even started writing this book to 3 other Republican presidential candidates. I've tweeted this out, not going to say who they are. Either in written form, over hours and hours of private conversation, in brief private conversations. A few of them I sent the advance copy of the book to before it was coming out because this is the most important issue. Once Americans are voting, everything else will be taken care of. But right now we're being outvoted by foreigners. There's no more important issue than immigration, and the left has been dumping the most dysfunctional, poor cultures on our country for 50 years now. Absolutely. I mean, it may be that the country's so far gone that even Donald Trump can't win, no Republican can win, but at least let us see if there is any hope for America, because if not, the next book will be a cookbook. But in any event, the 3 Republicans I was trying to push this issue on, they pretend they're in show, and of course they never picked it up. Donald Trump, I never thought would run for president. Why would anyone with a happy, successful life run for president? And if he ran, I had no idea he would be America's savior. He saw me on that Jorge Ramos interview. And before I had left Miami to fly to New York to actually start the book tour, his people had sent me an email saying he wanted a copy of the book. And he read the book, and that's all that matters. Though, if you read this book, you will understand everything that's happening over the next year. Yeah, and why it's happening.
And it's going to be a rough year. I mean, the American people are desperately seeking someone who understands their plight. And this book really talks about how we ended up in this position. It gives you the historical background of how long this has been going on, how Ted Kennedy, the great lion, or whatever we refer to him as, who, by the way, now a new movie coming out about Chappaquiddick, that ought to be interesting. Why don't they do a movie about Bill Clinton's escapades? That would be
a real movie would be fascinating.
Yeah, exactly. So we look at this historical pushing of the worst of everyone else's problems onto America, and sort of glamorizing the whole thing and making you feel inhumane if you object. Now, I'm Hispanic, I object. I know people who have struggled to get into this country, who have paid their dues, have studied the culture, changed, assimilated, and they're really resentful that we're about to hand over citizenship as though it were, in a Cracker Jack box. And this book tells you this didn't just happen. This didn't begin in the last 10 years or even the last 20 years.
Right, and how Republicans have been utterly co-opted and destroyed by these heinous donors who just want their cheap labor, just keep it flowing. I mean, I sort of anticipated this. I had no idea how strong the pushback was going to be, but we see it with Trump, even with Trump out there for 6 months now, soaring in the polls, taking all the slings and arrows on anchor babies, on sanctuary cities, using the phrase illegal alien.
Right.
Saying we need a temporary suspension of Muslim immigration, even with him taking all the crap for saying what needs to be said. Mexican rapists in this book. Right. None of the others will pick it up. They won't pick it up. Finally, 6 months in, we got Cruz to sort of tepidly pick it up, but he won't really take a position on whether he does want to legalize the not 11 million, 30 to 50 million illegal aliens in this country, as you will find out in this fine book.
It's a serious work, but it's also just clever. The way The book is presented. It's easier to understand than a lot of people suspect. Sometimes, Anne, I've read every book. I'm the second biggest fan that you have. And, Anne is real thoughtful, and she puts a lot of work, a lot of research, a lot of footnotes into these books. This book read as if it's a story being told about how we got into the position we're in now and how there actually is a chance to save the country.
And it's much shorter than it looks, so don't be intimidated. That's all footnotes.
That's what I'm talking about.
So you can get through it very quickly. If you're interested, you can read the footnotes.
I read the footnotes. I mean, I need to know where the information is coming from. Not that I, have to vet Ann Coulter's books anymore. Maybe the first one, which has changed my life. But I will tell you this. You can use this information immediately when you talk to your friends. I don't care if they're, on the same side of the issue as you are or on the completely opposite side of the issue. You can't negate the facts that are in here.
Yes, which is why they don't, nor with me, nor with Donald Trump. Me, they just refuse to debate. That's why you have to watch me online or listen to me on Joyce's show. With Trump, it's racist, fascist,
Islamophobe
bigot, nativist, Hitler. These are your arguments? Oh, now I see why they wouldn't debate.
Right.
But what a powerful force it is. It's not just the liberal media. I had to tweet back to somebody this week when I pointed out that because, I support keeping America American, I get asked by Republican consultant Rick Wilson whether Trump pays more for anal. That guy calls into Dave Bratt, who beat Coulter over the issue of whether we can live in America or whether we all have to live in Uganda.
No, not
and
Uganda.
somebody calls into C-SPAN saying, can I SHIT in your mouth? Live on TV.
Right.
And then what was the one I got? Oh yeah, why am I against America turning into Uganda since I like sitting on big black COCK? So this is, I mean, they immediately turn into Linda Blair in The Exorcist.
Right.
When confronted with, but we liked America the way it was. Why do we have to become Mexico, Uganda, or whatever?
And it's obvious that there's a real guilt complex in this country that just is so deep-seated, whether it's race or ethnicity or now theology, because we're fighting over whether or not Trump was out of line saying he wanted a temporary ban on Muslims, as if he was talking about some religious group. He's talking about jihadists. I mean, I want a temporary ban. Actually, I want a permanent ban on jihadists, but I can't quite figure out how we do that if we don't start with a temporary ban. But that's it. They just name call and they carry on. This is starting to move along here now. There are people who are going to want to be asking some of these questions.
What was so brilliant about the temporary Muslim ban in it is, as you know, and most people probably haven't read Trump's absolutely beautiful immigration policy paper, the greatest political document since the Magna Carta. And if you haven't read it, you should go online as soon as this
Senator Sessions
is over.
would agree.
And read it right away, because it's only like 2 pages. It's absolutely brilliant. It explains everything. And he calls for, as I do in Adios America, a temporary pause on all immigration. We had a temporary pause on all immigration from 1924 until 1965, and it was the most booming, prosperous period in American history. Let's assimilate the ones here, settle down. We don't have to become Mexico by next 2 weeks, even though it would help the Democrats' electoral prospects. But this is what happened in San Bernardino is it's the camel's nose under the tent. Trump can make the argument, maybe we shouldn't be bringing in all these Muslim immigrants who keep shooting us, blowing us up, flying planes into skyscrapers. And then people say, but how can you tell? It's so mean. Great, let's just shut down all immigration. We'll go back to, whatever it was, point 10 of my immigration policy paper.
And it's fascinating because I have been on, unlike Anne, who was born a conservative and came out of the womb,
Yes,
a conservative. I was on the dark side, and I will tell you, I was for zero population growth in 1970. I said that we could not accommodate a single immigrant in this country until we evaluated our use of land, our use of water. I had all these, tree-hugging, backups for my argument. And I also said, we're losing our culture. And that's when I
Yes.
got alienated from the people on the left, because they said, well, what does that mean? Why do we have to have a culture?
We hate this culture.
I said, because look at what it's accomplished.
Yes.
You know, in a very short period of time, we've managed to create the greatest, most prosperous, most free country on earth. And
See, that's
what's
where
the
I
matter
think
with that?
the guilt comes in. We're supposed to, and I mean, on the left, they just hate America and want to destroy it, and they're about to destroy it.
They hate Israel too. They hate Western civilization.
Yes.
Is what they hate.
Yes. Did you? Well, you probably know the details of this. Did you hear this? That George Soros is continuing to pay to move the refugees into Europe, not to help them when they're there,
No.
not to set them up, just to move them there. I mean, it's just a hatred of every successful Western society. Well, what are you going to do? And I'm sorry I haven't responded to the Uganda tweets. I've been very busy.
Yeah, and why am I getting them?
But apparently, I've said among the many countries I don't want to live in Bangladesh, Honduras, Mexico, Scotland, Japan. I don't want America to become Uganda either. This was sent out to Uganda, and I've been very busy this weekend, so I haven't been able to respond. But for those of you telling me how much better Uganda is than America, fantastic, glad you feel that way. Please stay there.
Right.
Please don't come here.
Or bring your, you can come as a tourist, but you have to leave after a couple
No,
of
I don't
days.
think we need any tourists now.
From Uganda? Come on.
No, I think we're fine on tourists.
Okay.
It was tourists who flew planes into the World Trade Center. Tourists are not so
No,
safe.
those were actually, you're
And
right.
asylum seekers.
Yeah, well, and that's an issue now. And if Donald Trump had not brought it up, it would be another one of those closeted issues that
Yes.
I'm really tired of hiding from.
Yes.
There's nothing politically incorrect about preserving this country. I don't know when that became part of political correctness at all.
It's very strange that our party,
Your
which is
party.
going to be the new Trump Republican Party, and I promise you, 30 years from now, all the people now saying, I'm not a Republican, I'm a Reagan conservative. Yeah, screw you. I'm keeping a list of who's naughty and nice.
Right.
And I'll tell you who was a Trump conservative and who wasn't.
And I'll tell you, somebody asked me the other day if I thought that Rubio was the most Reagan-esque, or if I thought that Cruz was the most. And I said, you guys have either have very short memories, or I've grown quite old. But I remember how Ronald Reagan was treated. It was very similar to the way Trump is being treated. He was marginalized. They made fun of him all the time. He would say things, and then they would accuse him of being, anti or out of his mind, or sleeping through meetings. And now they all want to be Reagan conservatives.
And the other
Trump
thing
is Reagan-esque.
that's similar is, well, it was 35 years ago, so we
Right.
actually don't want someone to be exactly like Reagan.
We have to
Different
update
issues
it.
now, more on Republicans. But I remember that. And Reagan he didn't spend his entire campaign saying, I'm Calvin Coolidge.
No, he didn't.
What is, these Republicans, all they can do is say, I mean, they literally use the same words. I'm a happy warrior. Have you seen Jeb Bush say that? I've never seen anyone so unhappy. Poor Jeb.
He looks so uncomfortable.
He
in his
so
skin.
doesn't want to run. He's like, Carol Moseley Braun, remember when the Democrats made her run so that Al Sharpton wouldn't get too big a percentage? And I just thought her campaign motto should be, can I stop now? I hate this. That's how I feel about Jeb. Can I stop now?
Well, his mother told us quite clearly that she didn't want him to run. Who knows better than your mom what you're able to do? And then she had to have reverse course, which is too bad. And, I have said 100 times, Trump came out, started looking for America's pulse. He read Adios America because he knew Americans, the people he works with, the people who come to his businesses, who support him all these years, are frustrated, and he wanted to know what it was. He didn't need the job. If anything, it still amazes me that he would give up everything he has to serve this country in this manner.
That's why I didn't believe he was ever going to run. I mean, he's threatened to run before.
That's right.
I never really believed it because, I think I've said this before, but I think Romney is the best vice presidential choice for him for many reasons, mostly because, as you'll read at the very end of this book, where I evaluate all the presidential candidates on the most important issue facing the country, Romney was the best until Trump came along. Who imagined?
Who knew? Yeah.
I feel like I'm dreaming every day. But Reagan, Romney, Trump, what they have in common that's very striking is that all of their lives are made worse by running for president.
Exactly.
Their lives will be worse if they become president or did
yeah.
become president. They have fantastic lives.
Absolutely.
Obviously, they're doing it because they love the country. And if you go back, I mean, once Trump came along and rose like a phoenix, I started looking into, more about him, what he said in the past, especially with all these lies out there about, oh, he's a lifelong Democrat. No, he isn't.
Close to Hillary. I don't think so.
Always cared about America and Americans first. And that is what the Republican Party used to be and gave up on it, who knows when, 20 years ago. He's the only one that actually is combining, I suppose, some policies from the Democrats. I never thought it was a policy from the Democrats. Is it a Democrat policy or a Republican policy that George Soros and Warren Buffett should only pay 7% of their income in taxes? What, because they signed Grover Norquist's pledge? That's all we care about?
Apparently.
No, I'm sorry. That isn't my Republican Party.
No. And I think that's the disenfranchised public that has attached itself to the bigger-than-life persona. And I don't really care. People say to me, but do you look at some of the Trump supporters? Do you want to be, with
I love them.
I say, yeah. I mean, I want to party with them. I want to know them. I want to be there when they vote. I want to have a total
That's getting
experience.
to be half the country.
It's getting to be half the Republican primary voters, that's for sure. And the best part, and this really is for me, with what I do for a living, and certainly for you, Ann, is watching the mainstream media, whatever you call them. They are contorting. They don't know what to say anymore. It's obvious that he's not going away. It's now becoming clear that he most likely stands a very good chance of getting the nomination. And if he doesn't, whoever he backs is going to win this election. And I think that's critical.
I think he's getting the nomination. I think he's
hope you're
going to
right.
win. The one thing I'm worried about, and Trump supporters...
They cheat.
Yes. How did you know what I was going to say?
Because we both watched.
Now, he's smart, he's organized, I trust him, but we're going to need that army of Trump supporters out being poll watchers. They are going to try to cheat. I mean, I'm quite convinced they cheated in 2012. It simply isn't possible that more blacks voted in 2012 than in 2008. That was the first black president, and according to the exit polls, well, no, those are voters being voted for.
Michael Jackson voted from the grave. So I guess that figures into that category. Can I take some of these questions?
Yes, let's start with the questions.
We got a great question. It says, my husband got me hooked on the Coulter drug, and ever since I've been an avid Ann Coulter reader and follower. What would Ann write about next?
Wait, this is from my
This is
number
from the
one.
lady
This is from
who-
my super fan.
She may have me beat as
With
number one fan.
A picture of all of her books of mine. I don't think you have a Zoom function, but there it is. All
They're
11.
stacked beautifully.
They're magnificent. It looks beautiful. Well, right now, Trump has kind of upended my entire life. I would be working on my next book now, but all I care about is getting him elected. And I'm kind of annoyed because I can't do anything until next November now.
And would you consider a cabinet position?
I don't think so. I mean, I've offered frequently. I'd like to decide every immigration case, and I could save the American taxpayer so much money. I will do it the way they do Tinder. It'll be swipe right, swipe left. I can do it all, but get every application done before breakfast. Most of it will be no.
I love it.
But for young, hardy, good-looking immigrants who already speak English, and I think we'll have an easy time assimilating.
Who actually have a
I
desire
might
to
make a
assimilate.
few. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
And
'cause
other than that, if Trump doesn't get elected, well, I said this actually is an important point, and I hate to say this, but there is no hope for America there may be no hope now, but this election will let us know. Has the entire country become California, where a Republican can never get elected again? And the Republicans are just arguing over who can milk a he-goat. Good luck to you. I'm not going to be part of that. I'd probably start writing fiction.
I could see, in this book for the first time, I saw a little bit of your changing the use of language, making it a little easier so that you don't have to be as thoughtful as Hetty. As some of your books were too deep for like my kids who were educated at Harvard and Yale. You know, they said, like, this is heavy stuff, Mom. And Adios America.
But I always throw the jokes in, even with, actually,
Yes.
you know, the one book that didn't have jokes, because my editor at the time went through and surgically cut them. They were against humor in writing, was the first one.
High Crimes and Misdemeanors.
But since then,
again, was a life-changing experience for many of us. Changed the direction of my show.
and think of that, that was about Clinton. There was a lot of opportunity for jokes.
Oh yeah, and you have to understand. I left the Democrat Party over Clinton.
Really?
Oh yeah, I was a Democrat, not a liberal, but a Democrat at the time, and I had the Reagan experience. The party was leaving, and I was like the last person standing there, kind of holding the cup and hoping somebody might come back in the room that I recognized. Or that liked America, and it never happened. And then I read your book, and I was on the air with McAuliffe, Terry McAuliffe, who was the chairman of the Democratic Party at the time. And I said, it was still, they hadn't selected a candidate. And I said, well, I could never support Bill Clinton. And he said, why? And I said, well, because I know somebody who works in his cabinet, and he's a whoremonger. And they said, you'll never be able to validate that. And so I said, really? I said, and I'll tell you something else. I will never support Al Sharpton or Jesse Jackson either. And he said, well, then you can't be in this party. And I tore up my card on the air that day. And I said, you're right. I can't. I look around and it's unrecognizable to me.
Do you have that posted on your webpage?
I'm sure. And then your book just gave me what I needed after that to say, the public is not paying attention.
Right.
And they're being lied to a lot. And there are people who know the truth, and they're not getting a voice out here.
Right.
And your book was the first voice that gave that.
That makes me so happy.
It made me very happy too, because I'm sitting there thinking I'm all alone out here. Maybe I'm wrong, you know. Maybe this isn't really what's happening, but I saw that shift, that dynamic shift in what we were willing to accept in our leaders.
Yes.
And it just made me so angry.
Yes.
And I didn't become a Republican, but I certainly started thinking more about my country going down the drain. And the only party that was talking to me was the Republican Party. At that time, they still had a message, and they were still trying to deliver it, and they were still, sort of
that's why
living
I
off of
say
Reagan's legacy.
They were, and but they still are now. 35 years later, new problems.
My producer wasn't even born when Reagan ran for
was giving a
president.
college speech last year, and the kids all told me they were in kindergarten for 9/11.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
But they weren't in kindergarten for San Bernardino.
That's right.
And that's something that we now have to drive home, because I think it is a little disconcerting even
also,
for them.
a lot of kids, you're right, a lot of kids don't remember what Bill Clinton did in the Oval Office. I gotta bring back high crimes and misdemeanors.
I think so. And they don't know anything about Hillary Clinton. All they know is that she's got a vagina. That's like all they ever talk about is like, oh, we have to vote for her, the first woman president.
Right. Well, wait till you hear how Bill Clinton treats women. It's going to shock you. One of my friends is a doctor in New York, a gynecologist. So he has female patients and lots of young college kids. And he told me he'll bring up that what Bill Clinton was doing in the Oval Office with Monica Lewinsky, and they don't believe him.
No.
They don't believe him. He'll say, no, really, Google it.
Right? I didn't know that you could use cigars and humidors in that manner, but I learned. And it certainly changed our perception of how we cover a presidency, because people were fired left and right for using terms like BJ. What were we supposed to say?
I know.
There was no other terminology at the time, And then what is, and I never had sex with that woman. It was just priceless. And the media treated it as if people like me who were asking questions were, for a long time, I was anti-Southern, which was fascinating. I was like operating in Florida. And somehow
this is like how Democrats insult black people.
Right.
You notice how Bill Clinton only became the first black president when he gets caught in the middle of the most humiliating sex scandal in world history. It wasn't when they're singing Fleetwood Mac at the inauguration.
Right.
It's not when his wife is pushing health care. No, it's when he is caught in the most humiliating sex scandal. He suddenly becomes both black and Southern.
Yes, and certainly had some of the characteristics that bigots say about people, but that's a whole nother show. I have another here, interesting, I truly am your biggest fan, he says. I was simply wondering, What is the worst or nastiest thing one of the detractors who promote tolerance have ever done to you? I saw them throw a pie at you once.
Oh, we were just talking about that, but I escaped it because I moved like Keanu Reeves in The Matrix. They didn't hit me, and also they throw like girls.
You've had some moments.
It always kind of validates me, in my opinion. I would think the most insulting, I suppose, when anyone questions, it's more from the right wing, when anyone questions my judgment. You're going to save yourself a lot of time. Just hang on my every word. You don't have to read everything.
Right.
But I do read everything. So don't come to me and say Romney is a rhino, but Rubio, bold, bright colors, no pastels, conservative. Don't humiliate yourself. That is the worst thing that happens to me. And I think I may have said this on your show, but because it's really striking to me, the book I wrote a couple of books back, Demonic, about groupthink and mobs and the French Revolution. When I wrote that book, I could honestly say there was no mob behavior on the right. And now I really think there is.
Oh, absolutely.
How can any sentient being hate Mitt Romney with the hot, hot hate of 1,000 tons, but I mean, forget Ted Cruz. Rubio? Rubio is John McCain. Mitt Romney, again, vetoed in-state tuition for illegals, vetoed healthcare for illegals, vetoed driver's licenses for illegal. Meanwhile, Rubio, Cruz, McCain all wanted to make them legal. Romney was Mr. Self-Deport.
Which is actually a phenomenal term, attrition through enforcement.
Right.
That's what happens.
No,
they self-deport when
it's
you start cracking
a
down.
wonky term. It's not an uncompassionate term. It just means they go back the same way they came. We won't be rounding them up. I mean, now that the Trump plan has appeared, mass deportation on a wall, it looks, admittedly, now it looks a little rhino-esque.
I think I gotta love it. All right, from we have an interesting question here. Of the current gang of GOP candidates, do you see anyone with the ability to start turning this tide? Obviously, they haven't been paying attention. It says perhaps Trump. But if we get him, what do we get? I mean, in total.
If we get 10% of what he's promising on immigration, we will have 90% more than we'd get with any of the rest of them, because the rest of them are all just, they're just itching. They're itching. They've got to. It's like a compulsion. A psychological compulsion must pass amnesty, must bring in the rest of the third world. Right, third world, bring them in, because look how well it's going for Republicans in California. No, there is no hope. There is no hope. The only hope, I mean, if something were to happen to Trump, the only hope is you'd have to recruit Mitt Romney, because self-deportation, it's second best. It's not as good as Trump, but with the reaction Trump has had, you would think that most Republicans will have figured out, wow, this is popular with voters. Maybe I shouldn't listen to what the Chamber of Commerce says. And this is why we're also going to have to go, assuming Trump is the nominee, and he will be, we're going to have to go back to the well one more time and ask Republican voters, except for a couple of primary challenges, Paul Ryan, by and large, you got to vote for whomever the incumbent Republican is, particularly in the Senate, because we're at risk of losing the Senate, because Trump needs a Republican Senate and a Republican House. And yes, they're swine.
Not in North Carolina. We got to get rid of
Oh, yeah, definitely Elmers.
Right,
we have to get rid of her, because she can't learn. Tillis, by the way, has turned out to be fantastic.
Yeah.
The senator from North Carolina, who was bad when he was in the North Carolina legislature, and I attacked him viciously, Tom Tillis. There was this great Tea Party conservative running against him, Greg Brannon, I think his name, Dr. Greg Brannon. I was all for him. Tillis learned his lesson. Yeah. So he's at least smart enough. He's part of, the Sessions pro-America crowd now. These guys are capable of learning, and I think if Trump, despite the entire media, right-wing and left-wing, attacking him, if Trump becomes president, I think that's going to wake up a lot of GOPs. I think they will be scared of their shadows if they don't get with Trump on immigration. So no more primarying guys and losing Senate seats, but we can primary a few House members, like Paul Ryan, for example, just to take one example off the top of my head.
Right. Well, we don't have to primary Marco Rubio, thank goodness. He has already told us he does not like the job of being a senator, and I just can't wait till he is back up on the Hill as a lobbyist, which is, of course, his future, working for La Raza or one of those organizations. I think this caller or listener or viewer says, I think next year will be the most important election since 1860. What do you think?
I agree.
Okay.
I agree. We could be seeing the breakup of the Republican Party now, and over the same issue that the Whig Party broke up, the rich's need for cheap labor. It's the same issue, and I keep seeing, alleged conservatives on Fox News, for one thing, denouncing Trump. He's not a real Republican, and we're all saying, fantastic.
That's what we wanted.
Half the country, whoa, yeah, thank you for reminding me. Or saying we're going to see the breakup of the Republican Party. Well, yeah, if they won't defend the borders of a sovereign nation, if they won't let Americans live in America anymore, I'm sorry, we thought it would be more useful for our rich patrons if we lived in Mexico. No, Americans, and by the way, Mexican immigrants don't want to live in Mexico. That's why they left Mexico.
Or, there certainly is a moral case to be made for talking about this openly and not shutting down the conversation. That's what this book did. It opened up the conversation in a manner that people could feel comfortable expressing themselves. There's nothing bigoted about it. It's pro-American, and it's the clarion call. You can lose this country. It can happen in a moment. Is that what you want? I mean, I obviously, I'll do anything to see that Trump gets the nomination at this point, because
right.
I just want to upset the apple cart. I don't know where the apples are going to fall, but
I think
it can't be any worse than it is now.
I think this is the last hope.
Yeah, it may very well be.
I thought it was over when Romney lost. I was very depressed. You could probably go
I
back
remember.
In my first interview, it was already arranged, was on the Dennis Miller show, and I said, okay, Democrats have won. They changed the demographics of this country. Because, I thought it was odd. I was listening to a lot of the GOP candidates on C-SPAN yesterday, and Cruz keeps talking about being Reagan and how this is the Reagan revolution and we're going to take our country back. He's got to know. He's smart. Does he think listeners don't know? Reagan would not win in today's America because the Democrats have changed the demographics. Romney did better than Reagan did with Americans.
Yeah, and that's the point. If
Americans are being outvoted.
If their hope is that Jeb Bush is going to get a Hispanic vote, I got news for you. I don't know any Hispanics that are going to vote for Jeb Bush. As a matter of fact, I know more Hispanics who would vote for Donald Trump.
Yes.
I know more Democrats who would vote for Donald Trump. And let's not forget, the one thing that Reagan did was get Democrats to vote for him. We need Democrats to vote for the Republican candidate.
Non-traditional Republican voters.
Yeah.
And so many of them are coming to vote for Trump. He blows up the media narrative against Republicans, which is...
Against politicians.
Against politicians,
which is why
yes.
It works on both sides of the aisle.
The media is obsessed with any Republican, must attack for being Christian, pro-rich, pro-war. I think that's kind of blown up by Donald Trump, whose pitch to evangelicals is, I don't go to church that much.
Right.
Is anyone really worried he is going to impose a theocracy on America? But he will give evangelicals what I think evangelicals actually want. Leave us alone.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what he says. And he actually has said, if we're going to bring in refugees, let them be the Yazidis or some Christians. Why are we so...
I don't trust them. Shut it down.
But I think that there's a case to be made. I saw an incredible documentary the other day that wasn't made by a left-wing film company about the plight of the Yazidis, and we've ignored it, and that's kind of tragic. So he's right.
We've ignored unemployed roofers.
Yes, we have.
Engineers, Disney workers, gardeners. First, we save America, then we save the rest of the world.
And we can save them where they are. I'm just for giving them lots of money.
Right.
Syrians don't want to live in Kansas. They'd rather live in the United Arab Emirates, where they speak the language and can eat as much hummus as they want, or whatever it is that they eat. And I'll definitely get in trouble. Now, apparently Germany's had it. Did you see that record number of first-time gun buyers in Germany, they're scared.
They
There's
should
rape,
be.
There's rape, there's burglaries, there's hostility, there's assaults on the street.
No,
I
I'm
haven't
really
seen this.
ticked off because I've always said, you know how people are always going off, mutual friends of ours, off on safaris, or, you know, I'm going to Vietnam. I have no interest in going to
My
taking
kids
a
did that.
vacation in the
Cambodia.
third world. No. So I like vacationing where they at least have five-star hotels, i.e. Europe. And now we can't go
Not
to
even
Europe.
Europe. Yeah, they ruined France. It's pretty scary. But that's, you know, that's the fate. When people ask me, well, what do you think's going to happen if Ann Coulter's message doesn't resonate, if people don't read her book,
Build
if
a bunker.
Trump doesn't win? Yeah, I said, well, I don't know where to tell you to go. You know, I have people who are buying places in Paraguay. I don't want to live in Paraguay.
I wanted to
Costa
live in
Rica.
America.
Yeah, I don't want to live in Costa Rica. I want to live in Florida, actually. I'm partial to Florida, you know, and I like the weather, I like the language, and, you know, if I want a taco, I can get it, but I can also get a hot dog, you know, it's like, I don't want to go anywhere else. I like the fact that when I walk into a restroom, the toilet flushes, which brings us to, why do you think Hillary was late to the Democratic debate?
For the bathroom break, I was just talking about how much I love that, just because it shows, and I'm not a liberal, I'm not a mean person, I don't like to see people humiliated for fun. It wasn't that humiliating, but it does show a certain level of ineptitude, again, by the smartest woman in the world, and contrast that with the unbelievable, runs like a Swiss clock Trump machine, and they have the audacity to pretend, oh, Hillary's dying to run against Trump. Her staffer couldn't even keep the bathroom free for her? No, I'm sorry, that wouldn't happen in the Trump operation.
Although I keep waiting to see the Trump operation. I mean, we just got a Florida.
There's one guy.
Yeah, we just got a Florida division over here, and you go up to Trump Towers, and the Trump headquarters looks like there's like 2 pictures on the wall. A guy came to pitch the new South mission to me. He had 1 button. I said, like, what do I do with the 1 button? You know, it's like, I'll wear it, but like I could use 20, you know? A couple of bumper stickers. Throw me a bone here. You know, how do I get the word out? He goes, don't worry about it.
I think it's no longer a secret that I'm a huge supporter of Trump.
I think not.
And I dropped by to see them. I got in from LA. It was probably just 2 weeks into his declaring. And it's an entire floor. And I'm walking through, and it's just like empty concrete walls,
yeah.
and then there's one little desk,
And
and
a
I'm
phone.
talking to these 2 guys with one phone, yeah. And then we talked for a while. I was so happy to be with people working for our next president who's going to save America. So I stayed longer than I should have. But I was leaving. I said, "Oh my gosh, I have to get a keep our Make America Great Again hat."
Didn't have one.
No, I didn't have one.
No.
He gave me
He didn't
his.
have one when he came to see me, and he gave me this button that is like, I don't know if it was a presidential button or just a Trump button. It didn't say
No, it's
president.
the power of Donald Trump. And
I
every
guess.
day he's speaking to 20,000 people, 10,000 people.
Oh, yeah.
That was a great thing about C-SPAN yesterday, the road to the White House with all the loser Republicans and their little events.
There's 7 people sitting in the front
Yeah,
row.
or, you know, maybe 100, but they were obviously paid to be there. Oh,
The debate watching
and
party.
I tweeted this out at the Cruz rally. After he was talking, C-SPAN, you know, they go around and talk to the supporters. And the first supporter said, oops, sorry. The first supporter said, what do you like about Cruz? And he said, well, we got to make America great again. And the next one said, well, I support him because we've got to do something about immigration. And the next one said, I support him because we have to end this political correctness. So I tweeted it out. You're at the wrong rally.
Exactly.
And then, by the way, tweeted that out, came back to finish decorating the tree, and the next supporters at the Cruz rally all admitted that they were really Trump supporters, but they like Cruz.
Yeah, I saw that. They thought Cruz was more electable, which I found
That's insane.
I found like just inconceivable, because the only hope Ted Cruz has is that Donald picks him to run, which is why I think he's kissing
Or
up to him.
BSG. He should be the Solicitor General.
He could do that. Attorney General. He could be Attorney General.
I want him arguing before the Supreme Court. Well, you could use a wild man doing that. He's argued many cases before the Supreme Court. He's Harvard
Written
law.
some brilliant opinions.
I mean, I kind of would like him in the Senate to help Trump, but Who would make a better Solicitor General?
Can't think of anybody.
No, I think by the end of this,
We'll have the
of
whole
our
cabinet
online thing,
set
yeah.
up. You know, it works
I'm
for
the
me.
entire immigration service. I'm going to save you guys
all by
so
yourself.
much
You're gonna sit
taxpayer
there.
money.
What is it, Tinder? You're going to do this all? I'm very impressed. You know all that.
Before breakfast,
lingo.
I can decide them all.
That's awesome. I've already lost the screen that shows me where I'm supposed to be asking questions, and she's talking about Tinder. Go figure, right?
Wait, do you need help with the screen? Seriously?
Yeah, I do. It's all right.
Okay, you're going
Somebody
to
will
see
help
a
me.
Technical flaw here.
Here we go. This is casual. How'd you do that? Oh, it was hiding in the corner. Thank you so much. We
Notice
just
all the
wanted a cute
handsome
guy in
men
there,
we
yeah.
have.
We
We
wanted to
have
give
helping us.
That's for you ladies. We wanted to make sure that you had something to look at. Since your husband is glued to his computer screen right now, and you're going, "What are you watching?" It's Ann Coulter. She's on the screen. All right, we got a great question. Would you ever want to be Trump's vice president?
No. We want Donald Trump to win. People say he's not politic. You haven't seen not politic.
Yeah, that's true.
No, and also I do think we need somebody, and thank you, I'm sure that was meant as a compliment, but I think we need somebody who's run, been elected, and done something. I mean, preferably a governor, say a governor from Massachusetts who believed in self-deportation.
She won't give up. Mitt Romney's going to
Well,
get
there's this
to
guy,
Pennsylvania
McGrory.
Avenue one way or another.
There's this guy McGrory or something. I just tweeted about him recently. We have to investigate him. He's the governor.
McGrory, I don't know who he is.
He's the governor of some southern state. I'm so embarrassed. You know, he's this huge, important governor, and I've forgotten his name. But I don't really follow politics. I
Is
follow
it
ideas.
Mississippi? Where's the governor?
I don't know, Tennessee, Mississippi, North Carolina, something like that.
North Carolina.
And anyway, there was some school. It was their university system, and he refused to have like all the gender, ethnic, blah 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 studies, and said, you know, if you're not happy, go to
Get
another
out.
school.
Yeah. Not here to coddle you.
So I'm thinking he might be the one. That's promising, but I don't know anything else about him.
Well,
Someone's
we have-
probably emailing you and telling you
I'm sure
what
they
his
will.
name is and whether we support him. Maybe South Carolina.
Oh, and here, you see, now people are buying into so much of this nonsense that's being said out there. Like, for instance, do you think Trump's recent comments on Putin's policies and saying that there's no proof that Putin kills journalists will affect his campaign? What do you think about what he said?
I think can you imagine if Putin had said this guy's a clown? I'd be asked, well, even world leaders are laughing at us because of Donald Trump.
Right.
I mean, the
They
one
don't
thing I'll
get
say
it.
about
The establishment doesn't get it that we are looking for someone who scares Putin.
Right, and also I will say, I actually kind of like it because not a fan of the KGB or the old
nor am I.
Soviet Union. I don't want to live in Russia, but I gather Russians want to live in Russia the same way I want to live in America. And the one thing you have to say for Putin is he is very patriotic for a Russian. He wants to keep Russia Russian. He's
Right.
not buying into the multi-culti nonsense.
Yeah, that's true.
He wins support by being patriotic and elevating the good things about Russia. And I don't know, it's one of these heads you win, tails I lose. If Putin had attacked him, wouldn't that be the story every 6 minutes that the rest of the
Exactly.
world is laughing at us?
Exactly.
I promise you, Donald Trump dealt with bureaucrats, building and construction bureaucrats in New York City. He can deal with a little Russian dictator.
That's for sure. All right, bilingual programs facilitate the Mexican invasion of our country. Why do tax dollars fund these programs? What is the rationale for those programs? There is none.
Making sure there are always lots of government jobs for Democratic voters.
Sure.
Because you have, and also lots of welfare recipients, because you'll never really get ahead in America if you don't speak English. So we keep bring in immigrants from backward cultures, preferably. Move them into little ghettos, tell them it's part of their ethnic pride to not learn English, to not assimilate to America, and then they will never get ahead. They will be dependent on the government to live, and there are lots of jobs for bilingual educators, bilingual poll workers. Oh, the bilingual poll workers, as if we are ever going to have Urdu spoken on the Senate floor.
Yeah? We did have a swearing in of a congressman on the Quran. So
I know.
I don't know what we're going to have.
Maybe we will have debates in Urdu. You're right.
Yeah. Do you think the de-evolution of the GOP was an inside job by the Democrats? Did they cultivate all the rhinos? Or are they not that crafty? And or conservative leadership just that dumb? Well, that's a
I'm
tough
leaning
one.
toward just that dumb.
Yeah. I don't think they're crafty enough.
No, and you can't fool someone who isn't. I mean, they really are so incredibly stupid. Even with this Trump phenomenon going on, you have there. It is. I mean, in part, it's another handsome man over there.
Clumsy, but handsome.
It is this mass psychosis where, and what you were saying at the beginning about this guilt over having a successful society, that we have to constantly debase ourselves. And no, Uganda, I'm sure, is just as good as the United States. And we all remember how Uganda saved the Jews from the Nazis and crushed the Nazi war machine and rushed in and helped Haiti when they had an earthquake and the tsunamis. No, where would the world be? Freeing the world, the sea lanes of pirates. Where would the world be without Uganda? They're just as good as America. Why, yes, they are. There's some weird mass psychosis that makes even Republicans say this, because you're racist if you say our country is better, but our country is better. No. There's no question that our country, our culture, and we are the freest country in the world, and you're going to lose that too.
Well,
you know, listening to those Democrats debate yesterday, I mean, if any of those Democrats win the next election, I mean, it is over in so many ways, but one of the first ways is going to be, of course, we'll get a new Supreme Court justice, and they'll say, hey, you want to bring another gun case up? And we will have our guns confiscated. And don't tell me you're all going to rebel and shoot people. No, you won't. No, you won't.
We might. I mean, it's certainly, there are over 300 million guns in this country right now, and 100 million people who know how to use them. I would say it's a long shot that they'll give them up.
Well, Americans are too law-abiding. I say that with a note of regret in my voice.
Yeah, I'm not that law-abiding personally, but that's the deal. I think the other thing when I talk about the guilt, it's this whole issue of skin color that has really played into the Mexican invasion, because that's what it is, in a manner that I never thought of myself and my people as brown.
Right,
we actually check off the white box when we sign papers and things like that, but now we're brown. And somehow I'm supposed to be really proud of that. You know, I have a little more melanin in my skin than you do, but not as much as Bill Cosby. So I'm not sure what that makes me, but apparently brown is the new term. And the one thing I would love to see, and you would too, is when Cruz and Rubio go at each other, I would love to see it descend into like a Hialeah high school argument with the two Cuban gangsters going at it, because I know they want to do it. Unfortunately, Ted doesn't speak Spanish well enough, so Rubio could eviscerate him.
I love that about him.
Yes.
See that?
He's assimilated.
That's how we assimilate.
Yeah. But, you know, there are issues, again, you know, we have that whole issue of who's a real citizen or not, which keeps coming up.
Yeah.
You know, and it's certainly something that the Democrats will fish out against Cruz.
No, and it's happened for years. I mean, there is some rationale to it. You like people who were born on U.S. soil. I mean, it was an issue a little bit with McCain, and he was born because his father was a general at a military base in the Panama Canal Zone, and that they wanted to make absolutely sure about. But there is, I mean, we have the most brilliant Constitution ever written, and there is some rationale for that, and you see it in the issue of immigration. We're the freest people on earth, the freest country on earth, the least statist country, and as de Tocqueville said, freedom is a wonderful thing, but it's the hardest thing in the world to learn. And we do get immigrants from wherever they're coming from. If you're an immigrant to America, you are making America by definition less free, more statist, because the same way any immigrant to Finland makes Finland less white, because you have the whitest country in the world. So yeah, of course immigrants are going to keep voting for more and more government and more statism.
Yeah. Well, let's go to Los Gatos, California. And Ilan would like to know, How can Trump beat Hillary if Hillary is leading him by 9 points in the average polls? Would Rubio actually be best against Hillary?
No, Rubio is a total disaster. That'll be a wipeout. I'll be voting for Hillary if it's Rubio.
I said that. I will.
I mean, usually I say I'll just sit it out, but no, you would have to vote for Hillary because Rubio is obsessed with amnesty. He wants to turn America into Mexico, not because it'll be good for America, not because it will be good for Hispanic immigrants, but it'll be good for him as a leader of the Hispanics. It will be good for him, it will be good for his patrons, it will be very bad for Hispanics, blacks, whites. And look, that's all he's done. That is his sole legislative accomplishment. Whereas Hillary wants to wreck the country in like 100 different ways. So it could take her a while to get around to amnesty. Moreover, because there are so many idiot Republicans, particularly sitting in the Congress, they will at least know with Hillary to fight back. If Rubio pushes it, well, okay, there's some hope, whereas half of conservative talk radio fell for Rubio's amnesty. Let's flash back to 2013 and remember how dark things looked then. Luckily, the great sense of the American people has shut down 3 amnesties in the past 10 years with no help from the
our
big
elected
conservative
leaders.
voices. It's basically you, me, Matt Drudge, a few bloggers.
Yeah.
We got Breitbart. That's what has been fighting the onslaught.
Drudge, single-handedly has not let up, and I'm so grateful for that. Because,
I know.
And when you think about timing, if you do believe in Providence, Donald Trump comes out with his statement, and Kate Steinle's murdered the next day. I mean, there's a message that's trying to get through to us. Now,
Yes.
are we not going to pay attention to it?
Yes,
That's
and
the
the
question.
fact that Trump comes along at this moment, I mean, it is like these biblical stories where, the Israelites just keep being beaten, losing. They're losing every place they turn. They're being driven, and then it all works out, and David is the assistant to the king and saves all the Jews. And I feel like that with Trump. I mean, maybe we had to lose the 2012 election. Maybe we had to win the 2014 election and have Republicans betray us one more time for people to finally say, sorry, I'm not believing you anymore.
Yeah, well, of course, we're just on the omnibus spending bill that my junior senator, Marco Rubio, did not bother to go in and vote because he said it was like a vote, my not being there. And I'm still trying to figure that one out. I thought I was pretty bright.
Okay, so for that last emailer, tell Rubio it's like a vote.
It's like a vote.
To not vote for him.
To not vote, exactly. We have a question from Fort Bragg, North Carolina. I'm thinking military. Jonathan would like to know, I have been pretty furious about immigration since I've seen what is happening in Europe. No clue how bad it was here until now. What are the good methods of following immigration news? We were just talking about that. What are the blogs? What are the sites that you look at? Read the book.
Number 1, read the book. Again, shorter than it looks. Lots of footnotes. Breitbart.com is the best site. VDare, of course, that's nothing but immigration.
Right. FAIR, Numbers USA.
Who else do we trust? I always blank at important moments like this.
Drudge.
Yeah, Drudge.
Front page of Drudge. There'll be all the links to all of the other bloggers and websites.
And you can go to the Joyce Kaufman website and listen to Marco. By the way, I looked for this on your website and I couldn't find it after you told my jaw dropped. Joyce Kaufman got Marco Rubio on air, live on air, swearing on his mother's life when he was running for Senate from Florida that he would not push amnesty. You claimed there was a link on your webpage.
Oh, there
well, it ought to be at the top because I went and looked and couldn't find it.
Well, it was there for a while at the top, but we've moved on to my new attacks, thanks to your friend at the New York Times on Marco Rubio, which you see they recycled that article again this weekend on the Times mobile.
Oh, they did?
And they did the expanded version with the questions and answers that he didn't put in the first article. So, yeah, I mean, the subject, even in the New York Times, is certainly one of the hottest topics out there.
I was busy imbibing the Christmas spirit this weekend. I got to get back online.
I'm telling you, there was a lot going on. We're running out of time. I want to make sure we get to some of these very loyal fans. We have a Patrick out of Monongahela, Pennsylvania. I have no idea what that is. Simple question. Can Donald win?
Absolutely. Well, let me say, if any Republican can win, he's the best hope we have. I ought to say there is. I haven't given up hope, or I wouldn't have written this book. I still think. I mean, the plan for action of how to win in a demographically changed America is in this book. If I didn't think it would work, if the country was over, I would have started writing my fiction books already.
True.
Or my cookbook, also coming. But obviously, I think there's hope. I wouldn't have put so much work into this book. But we'll find out. Look,
Yeah.
if even Donald Trump can't win, and I've never seen anything like this, what is interesting, and I think normal people understand this, people who live in TV and studios do not, or live in New York, as you put
Right.
it, more simply. New Yorkers do not understand, except they ought to, because, I mean, even, my Jamaican cab driver was a Trump guy. I've never seen a phenomenon like this, where everyone you meet is not just for Trump, but has been, I mean, not everyone, but a lot of people, and surprising people, and people who either haven't voted or have never voted Republican.
Exactly.
There is so much enthusiasm for Trump. It's similar to Obama mania, but the difference is, in 2008, when people said they were for Obama, it was to make you think more highly of them, to announce to the room, I'm a good person. Now, people say they're for Trump, and they're expecting a fight.
Yeah.
They're saying it despite instantly being labeled, a various series of epithets. And in fact, I think you've probably reported on this. I just heard it in the background today. Online, Trump does 6 points better than on telephone.
That's right.
Polls, which I've been suspecting. I would like to go with the telephone robo-polls for this, because people don't want to admit to a reporter, hello, I'm calling from
Right.
Fox News. Who are you voting for? Oh, Rubio.
Or have you looked at Frank Lutz, who does these push polls, because those are not polls, those are focus groups, and they're designed to lead the person. I've been part of them, and I know what they do.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. He had one down here, and when I showed up, he said, yeah, you can go on it. He goes, because I know you'll give me what I want. And it was whether or not they should privatize the prisons in the state of Florida. So I walked in there. There were 24 people who were adamantly opposed to it, and me and one guy who were for it. By the end of the focus group, it was a unanimous vote for privatizing prisons, because you just have to know how to make an argument. People are ignorant. They're not all stupid. They just don't have the facts.
Right.
And they're scared somehow by the government not handling things. It might not go well. And then we just pointed out to them, and what exactly do they do well? They haven't managed to do very much. Well, I think maybe we ought to give them a hand at this, So that, but I look at a guy like Frank Lutz. In the beginning, he was anti-Trump to the point of I was going to boycott his polls. And now all of a sudden I'm watching him defending Trump against everybody and saying, this is not just a phenomenon. He says, I'm sitting in here. These people really don't care. He can say anything and they don't change their minds. They stay in the Trump camp. I've never seen this before,
yes.
He said. And it's true.
Well, that's the interesting question. I assume, even though we hold the establishment types in utter contempt, I assume if we're right, Trump gets through this, Trump's the nominee, they've got to say, he is running as a Republican, he's massively popular, I know, let's get behind him.
I don't know.
I
They're
know
that
people
dumb.
are cynical,
They're
but
that dumb.
I kind of think they will. Although I bet we will have some groups run by Christy Todd Whitman, Republicans against Trump.
I'm sure. Seems like the answer from Randall in Highlands Ranch, Colorado, seems like the answer to deportation is to heavily penalize employers who hire illegal immigrants. If they can't get jobs, then they will self-deport. Your thoughts?
That's the Romney plan. I mean, I never thought any candidate for elective office would be ballsy enough to suggest it, but I prefer the Eisenhower Operation Wetback, it was called, which is what Trump is pushing, deport them. He says start with the felons. Great idea. Second on my list is New York City cab drivers. Third on my list, yes, and they can figure out that even streets go east, odd streets go west. 20 years in America, New York City cab drivers can't figure that out, and I'm constantly going in circles. Okay, number one, the felons, murderers, child rapists. Number two, New York City cab drivers. Number three, I want the model illegal immigrant family, the kind that Marco Rubio and Bill O'Reilly would talk about. Hard workers, not on welfare, trying to learn English. I want to call in the media, send in a SWAT team, and I think the rest of them will get the message.
She's not ambivalent about the subject. That's why you want to read the book. If you want to wage the argument, you've got to read the book. I argue day and night for a living, and people are poorly informed. They are eager to hear the information that's in this book. Even you're crazy, like Dennis Miller says, don't argue with your family. I disagree. Thanksgiving was heavenly for me. I turned 18 people to Trump supporters at a Thanksgiving day with, believe me, it was not a population that you thought was going to vote for Trump. And I just pointed out some very simple things about how their lives were being affected right now from the book, legitimate case studies, an actual historical perspective, and I changed their minds. So if you're really serious about getting this country back, you got to have the ammunition. You can't just talk out of your ears. You've got to know what you're talking about. This book gives you the argument to make for preserving America. This isn't about hating anybody. It's about loving ourselves. We're allowed. You know, sovereign nations are entitled to borders, language, and culture.
Because alternatively, everyone is going to have to invite you to their house for Christmas dinner.
Right, and I'll take on your families, not to worry.
But I don't think you have that much time, so you may as well just get the book.
Yeah, get the book. You can make the argument. You'll sound so much smarter when you do. Thanks, Ann. It's been fun.
Are we done? Thank you.
I think so.
And we literally are almost done here.
Yeah. How many books did you sign? 200.
Oh, and they'll all go out. I forgot to mention. I was supposed to say they will all go out by noon tomorrow, so you can still order up until noon tomorrow. Special collectible signed book for Christmas, but they're all being mailed at noon tomorrow.
Okay.
Go Trump.